Hello my dears, my name is Mariana and welcome to my channel. I haven't put out a video in a little while. I've been really busy because if you don't know, I launched the Archetypal Tarot School recently and it sold out really fast. It's just been an amazing and a bit overwhelming journey. If you're curious at all about what the Archetypal Tarot School is, it is a 9-week program where we dive into the archetypal meanings of the cards and explore depth psychology and just a whole bunch of stuff. And actually, you can get on the wait list and maybe, get more info when the next class is ready to be launched. So there's a link in the description. But what we're going to talk about today is something that I think everybody has experienced once or twice, which is why your tarot readings don't make any sense and how to fix that. It is such a common experience to be so frustrated because we pull cards to get clarity and they only end up making us feel less clear about what the hell is going on. But there is a reason for that, and there is something that can be done. So I'm going to offer 5 points to consider when you pull cards so that you really get the most out of your readings. This is really for people who are reading for themselves, though it can be useful for people who are reading for clients. But I think that this is really for when we need the guidance and we pull the cards and nothing happens. There is something that can be done. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's go into these sort of 5 mistakes that we make and how to fix them. The first is that it's the wrong time to pull cards. In the Archetypal Tarot School, this was actually something that came up as a question: when should we pull cards? Marie-Louise von Franz, a brilliant Jungian, said that the time to consult the oracle, to pull the cards, is when you are at the heart of the archetype. So what does that mean? It means that when we're really in the moment, when we're really feeling like something is important, that's usually when we want to draw cards, when we want to get information. But also, there's a lot of times that we pull cards and we're not actually in that big archetypal experience, but we're in a crisis of feeling. Let's say you just had a really big fight with your partner and you want to pull cards to get clarity on what is this dynamic between us. If you are currently sobbing and crying and raging, that's not the time to pull the cards. The cards are only going to reflect your immediate experience because your ego, your mind is so overwhelmed with them, there's really no room to let in anything else. After a little while, after you calm down, maybe after a therapy session, when you feel ready to really start to contemplate those dynamics with you and your partner, that's the time to pull the cards. Another example might be that you've applied to a program or something and you just got a denial letter. The moment that you get the denial letter, you're probably thinking, oh my God, what comes next for me? What is my path really about? I thought this was a thing. It's not the thing. What do I do? So we're going to want to consult the cards, of course. But again, if you're raging and panicked and scared out of your mind about what the next thing is going to be, when you pull the cards, you're just going to get the Tower and the Magician reverse, and it's just going to feel like nothing makes sense. You need to wait a little bit. You need to let those emotions settle and start to really contemplate, who am I? Where am I going in my life? And when the energy returns to that question in a simpler way, then you pull the cards. Sometimes you have the question come to your mind like, oh my God, where am I going in life? And it feels really big and you really want the answer and you're not overwhelmed by those affects, those emotions. So that is a great time to pull the card. You don't always have to wait. It just really depends on whether your emotions are overwhelming your experience in the moment. So the simple fix is to intuitively check in. Am I ready to actually receive something right now? Or am I too locked in to the pain or the anger or the fear or whatever it is to block the answer or the revelation that the cards hold for me? Just give it a little time. I promise. It's going to be so much better. Okay, the second common mistake is that you pull cards looking for an answer rather than trying to get at the heart of your stuckness. So what I mean by that is a lot of times we go to the cards to resolve some issue in our life. So going back to the question of maybe you're having an issue with your partner, you may have the question in your heart of, are we really right for each other? How do we get through this fight that keeps coming up over and over again? If we go to the cards with the question of, are we really right for each other? And we pull the, 3 of Cups and we pull the 4 of Swords, we're gonna look at it and go, huh? But if we go to the cards with the reflection of, why don't I intuitively know what I want from this relationship or where this relationship is going, then we have more to work with. Maybe the Three of Cups points to the fact that your relationship really does bring you a lot of joy, but then the Four of Swords says that it's time to contemplate logically a little bit more deeply in a little bit more of a solitary space before you have the information to move forward. When we go to the cards looking for a very clear answer that needs to be very direct, we're going to be disappointed. We have 78 cards to represent the entire spectrum of human experience, and they are just not going to be direct. They're going to be metaphor. They're going to be symbolism that we're meant to interpret. And especially if we're going to the cards with the question like, what path do I take? What choice do I make right now? So let's say you're stuck between two choices, like you have a job opportunity that's somewhere across the country, but you don't want to leave your family and friends. What often happens is that we go to the cards and we say, which should I do? And we're going to get these symbols, we're going to get these archetypes that show us really complex things that don't answer the either or. So if you get the High Priestess in answer to this question, you're going to think, I should trust my intuition, but then you go blank because you don't know what your intuition is saying. Instead of asking for the cards to give us an answer to the question we have, we want them to give us the complexities of why we can't answer it for ourselves. So instead of saying, do I move cross country or do I stay where I am? Maybe the question is, why can't I connect with what I more deeply want? Then when the High Priestess comes up, maybe there's something about disconnection from that internal wisdom that is really the problem. Then you might more intentionally start to develop that intuition, and probably the answer will come because of that. Instead of looking for an answer, we want to contemplate our stuckness. We want to understand who we are right now and why the answer to that question isn't coming naturally to us. That is really the way to use the cards, and they'll give you so much more. Okay, the third mistake or the third thing we do is that we have no respect for the sanctity of the oracle. Now, what I mean by this is that we pull cards, and if they don't make sense to us, we toss them out. If we have a respect for the oracle, meaning that we believe that what cards come are meant to come, that there is some kind of greater guidance in them, we are not going to be so callous and reckless with them. So if you're questioning whether you should leave your partner and you get the Three of Pentacles and you don't understand it at all, instead of just saying that didn't make any sense and throwing your deck across the room, which I've done many times, we want to treat the oracle as a sacred thing, to trust that there is some kind of wisdom in the card. And another way we often kind of misuse the tarot in this way and don't appreciate its sanctity is that we pull cards kind of recklessly. We just get into an argument with somebody at work and we grab our deck and we just flip over a card and, it's like the Nine of Cups or something, and we're just like, damn it. Instead, we actually want to approach it as a sacred thing, as something that is special, that holds this wisdom we don't feel like we have right now. That means actually taking the time to sit with the deck beforehand, setting your intention or orienting yourself to what you deeply feel in the moment. Pulling a card should be a really precious moment. It should feel special, and it's going to have such a more special significance too. So again, if you're contemplating, staying at home with your family or moving cross country for this new opportunity, and you just flip a card and it's the moon, it's going to mean nothing. But if you sit for a moment with your deck and really feel into that crisis, into that sense of stuckness, and you know that this is a sacred moment between you and a greater knowledge, then when you pull the card and you pull the moon, you're gonna have a little shiver of awe. Something else is gonna be there underneath it, and you're gonna know that there is meaning. And that's really important because the card does have meaning. If you pull the moon there's probably a pretty good indication you're in the center of the night sea journey, that you're meant to kind of wander for a while and move through different phases of your life so that you can finally get to the sun. It's giving you a greater, more macrocosmic orientation to your life. And it's really important to allow those moments to pierce through. But if the tarot is just some pictures on some cardstock that's just meant to give you answers and you kind of abuse it, it's going to give you nothing. Okay, so the next mistake we make a lot is that we only read the cards one way. So let's take, for example, the question of whether you move cross country or you stay. Maybe you pull the Nine of Swords and the Nine of Cups and you're sitting there thinking, what in the world do I do with this? If you're only reading the cards as the Nine of Cups is satisfaction and fulfillment, and the Knight of Swords is, grief and horror, then you're gonna be very confused. What do I get from this? But maybe instead you notice that there's 2 nines here. Maybe you notice that the 9 of Cups is really about feelings and emotions, and the 9 of Swords is about our obsessive thoughts. Then what we might see is that both of those cards are pointing to being at the end of a cycle. We're at the 9s, the next card is the 10, and then the story's kind of over. So maybe what that opens us to is saying, maybe there is a part of me that is ready to end a story. Maybe I don't need to stay in this place anymore because I'm ready to initiate a new journey. Or let's take a different example of saying you're in that fight with your partner and you want to know whether you should leave or stay, and you pull the Moon card. Of course, you're going to think, all right, well, this is not helpful because yes, I don't know where to go, and yes, the unknown is very scary. But maybe you can actually use that symbol to connect to your own intuitions, your own experience, and your own associations with it. So maybe you actually take a little bit of time to think about that image of the moon, and maybe you remember that the first date you had was spent underneath the moonlight, and it was the most romantic moment you'd ever had in your life. Then maybe the moon symbol is pointing you towards your own wisdom that you've held, or the memories that need to give you something in this moment to get some clarity. Essentially, we want to allow the cards to kind of point us in unexpected ways. When we let them move us and show us new things, then we'll get more information stirred up in us and then potentially get more clarity about where we're going. The 3 of Swords does not have to mean heartbreak. It can mean experiencing a pain that we're blocking ourselves from. And the 10 of Cups doesn't have to mean perfect happiness is coming. It might mean that we're projecting that expectation of perfect happiness onto our situation. Essentially, you just want to be flexible with the meanings of the cards. Consider the number, consider the suit, consider what images and memories and thoughts get sparked in you when you see the card. Be really curious about other things the card might be pointing to, and you'll probably be surprised with how much is really there. And that brings us to our final mistake, not spending time in contemplation. So what I mean by this is that a lot of times when we pull a card, it's going to make no sense right away, but it'll probably make a lot of sense a week later. When we don't spend time with the card and we don't allow it to reveal things to us, we're missing a really huge opportunity. This is something we're working through a lot right now in the Archetypal Tarot School, actually, so I've been thinking about it. But what we're doing is that we're pulling 2 cards at the start of the week and nothing else. We're just sitting with those 2 cards, and we're returning to them every day to check in with if something new, if a little bit more information came through. And what my students are finding, and I'm finding too, is that every day a little bit more about the cards makes sense. And it has been really amazing to watch as a lot of my students kind of pulled cards at the beginning of the week, got kind of frustrated that they had no clear answer for what was going on in their hearts. And then by the end of the week, they're like, I get it. It's this remarkable transformation that can happen when you just let it take its own time. So this is why I don't usually like to use the tarot to get like quick answers, because things are not going to make sense at the moment. And there's a reason for it. This is the reason. When we're looking for an answer to something, or we're looking for a reflection point, we have to gather up information from the unconscious, meaning we have to gather up information that we don't already have accessible in our minds. We're trying to learn something about ourselves that is not right there, but is a little deeper. And that means that it's going to take a little bit more time for it to emerge. I always put it this way, and it's so simple, but it's so true. It's like we're trying to see the back of our own head. It's an impossible thing to do. We cannot simply say, why don't I know whether I want to stay or leave my partner, and pull the Lovers and think, okay, I get it. It's not going to happen that way. And the more that we sit with that Lovers card and let it reveal things to us or inspire new questions to ask, the more that we let it draw us down new pathways of considering love and how we experience ourselves in relationship, the more likely we're going to get that aha moment a little bit later on. Let the cards marinate, let them sit. You can't just pull cards, and if they don't make sense in 2 minutes, then they're the wrong cards. So often I'll do a reading for a client and think, that was okay, I don't know, that wasn't so great. And my client's face is kind of like, huh? And then like 2 weeks later, I'll get an email from them that's like, that changed my life. And it never makes sense to me, but for them, the cards began to click into place slowly over time. These things settled, and then they'd have dreams or thoughts or new feelings emerge that were the answers to the questions that they held the whole time. This is pretty essential and really what so much of us miss in our tarot practice. If we don't let ourselves sit with the cards, absorb their wisdom, explore the wisdom, it's really not going to do anything for us. So I challenge you to try this out. Next time you pull cards, sit with them for at least a week. Don't pull more cards. Don't start to think, oh my God, I picked the wrong pile. Don't do that to yourself. Just keep exploring, keep questioning. Every day, return to those cards and think, what else is here for me that I haven't seen yet? Start to be curious. Maybe do some research about the symbols in the cards, or start to do a little active imagination. Check out this video. Just keep moving with them. Keep exploring yourself with them. Don't just drop them on the floor and leave them. There is something there for you, I promise. You just have to take the time. All right, my friends, I hope this was helpful in orienting you to ways that you can actually get more out of the tarot when you pull cards, not feel so disoriented. Perhaps you saw some of these very common mistakes in your own practice, and maybe you're ready to try out something new and to deepen the way you use the tarot. I think you should do it, so just saying. If you haven't yet, go subscribe. If you haven't yet, go follow me on Instagram. And definitely check out the Archetypal Tarot School waitlist, and maybe it's something you might be interested in a little bit later, so go sign up. That's all I have for you today. I have a party to go to, and then I'm taking a very, very, very long nap. I hope you also have a beautiful, meaningful, and restful day. I'm tired.